First, I'd like to ask you both, what excited you about being in Pacific Rim in the first place?
Just the opportunity to work with a visionary filmmaker like Guillermo del Toro, and no, he didn't pay me to say that. It's the truth, you know. I just think he's amazing. You know, in my lifetime and most actors' lifetimes, you're not going to make too many films like this. You know, they're just not going to. So I jumped at the chance of being able to be a part of it. The script was good, but the film really hits through, and the experience as well was really out there as an actor. You know, I come from a television world and some film, but television is a quicker, fast-paced process. This was, you know, we slow baked this movie into what it is. It's really, really good process.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Idris. This, you know, in this landscape of current filmmaking where there's a lot of kind of remakes, and not to say that they're not great, there's a lot of great movies being made, but it seems it's more of a risk to tell an original story because there's no instant, there's no instant, what do you call it? You know, there's no, I can't think of the right word, but, you know, there's in a lot of these remakes now, people go into it with a big history, and you know, and to go
right.
into a world where Guillermo has the landscape to create a completely original, you know, detailed, textured world of his own, you know, set against the backdrop of giant robots fighting giant monsters. Like I say, with Guillermo at the helm was so exciting.
The truth is that, yes, giant robots, giant monsters, but great character development, great story, and it's a film with a lot of integrity. I think only Guillermo del Toro is capable of that.
Well, that's what I've always said with Guillermo. I mean, there's very few people that have the imagination and the passion to tell a story from the heart about monsters and robots. And of course, Guillermo, part of the way he creates these wonderful worlds is by making them completely human stories within that. You know, it's a very heightened version of exactly the world we live in, with all of the problems that we deal with in our everyday lives, but basically on the brink of apocalypse. But
we cancelled the apocalypse, just FYI.
Yes, we did.
We cancelled that apocalypse. But no, just to, you know, double back on that, you know, there is definitely the human element could not. The film's, you know, magnificentness or whatever that is, couldn't survive without the human connection, you know what I mean? And I think you've seen Pan's Labyrinth and Hellboy in these films, you know, these characters exist. These characters exist before the fantastical, you know, and that's what's important.
Let's talk about that human element. Who are the characters that you play?
I play a guy called Raleigh Beckett, who has risen from a very humble beginning to this elite rank of being a Jaeger pilot. These huge robots that we pilot are called Jaegers, which is a German word for hunter. And they have been manufactured because we have a giant problem on our hands in that huge monsters have come out of the ocean and are wreaking havoc on our world. And so I've raised to this very, very coveted position of being an actual Jaeger pilot, only to have a very dramatic and heartbreaking incident with my brother, and it results in me being relegated back to the, you know, a very low level. And in the journey for my character through the course of this film is thanks to the boss man's Stack of Pentecost brings me out of retirement and gives me a second chance. So it's really a story of, you know, of personal redemption for Raleigh.
Yeah, I played Stack of Pentecost, who, you know, really was sort of like one of the guinea pig Jaeger soldiers, you know, pilots. You know, when they first developed this program, you know, there was me and a few other pirates, one played by Max Martini. Handful of soldiers. We fought with the first Jaegers. They believed in our program, and then suddenly, you know, the kaiju attacks became more. So, you know, these elite soldiers became smaller and smaller, and there were less and less robots. Well, Stacker, being, you know, sort of like a diehard soldier and not one to easily pushed over, you know, became the leader of a small group of soldiers, the resistance, if you like, that still believed in the Jaeger program. And Stacker, you know, Stacker is a very sort of like a center point in the film. The characters come to Stacker and characters go from Stacker with, some sort of like, journey to go on. He's a fascinating character to play, sort of like a sensei, sort of like a Jedi type character.
And how do they get along, Raleigh and Stacker?
Yeah.
It's a pretty tumultuous relationship based, I think, on a tremendous level of mutual respect. They...
Yeah, this good-looking, cocky kid comes into my soul. Yeah, like, come on, dude, But I think there's
Stacker's not really big on insubordinance, and I'm not really big on following orders, so it creates a little bit of friction now and then.
But there's a mutual respect for each other, both soldiers that actually are probably the best Jaeger pilots ever, between the two of them and their group, so... that's that sort of respect for each other. It sort of sits in the underbelly of the relationship, I think.
And then we have a third key character who I would say completes this pilot triangle, who's Mako, played by Rinko. What can you say about that character and your relationship with her, and about what Rinko brought to it?
Well, Rinko's character for me. Sorry, Charlie, but Rinko's character for me was, the one human element in the story that was so real. She's practically my daughter, a child that I sort of saved from, near death, and he raised her to be who she is today. So, Rinko and I managed to have a really great relationship and sort of develop this on-screen chemistry. I really enjoyed working with her. She's absolutely beautiful to look at and so focused, and just like her eyes are windows, you kind of see what's going on in there. So it was a really real blessing to work with her, I thought.
One of the really interesting details, which I think is the thing that captured Guillermo's imagination right at the beginning of this whole thing, is this idea that the Jaeger pilots are neurologically connected to the machine, so there's no interface necessary. If I have a thought to throw a punch and throw the punch, the machine is going to do it simultaneously. But they're so vast, these machines, that it would be too much for one brain to interact alone with the machine. So he created this dynamic where it requires two people working in complete coordination to operate one of these machines, which is the great dynamic that's created in the film. And due to a huge tragedy in the beginning of the film, I'm no longer able to work with my co-pilot, and so I have to find another co-pilot, and there's a long, hard process, because generally it's brothers or lovers or people that are completely in sync that are able to share this space, because once we're connected to the machine, we're also connected to each other. So every secret, every memory, every fear, every thought in our mind is completely accessible to our co-pilot. And so you can imagine what a vulnerable state that would put you in, sharing everything with somebody like that.
And those scenes were shot on real stages, on real sets. I was going to ask you about that side of making this film, actually getting into those suits and getting into those sets that Guillermo created in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that, I'll act for free. It's it's everything else that I get paid for, and it goes around acting. But they're probably the only days in my career so far where I actually felt like I really earned my money. It was it was a really arduous process. Those suits are heavy and uncomfortable, but they sure do look heroic.
It takes 45 minutes to put one of the suits on, and 30 minutes to take it off. I'm not joking to you. It's like real business here. And then the head in which we, simulated the robot's head was in complete sync with what would actually look and feel like. I mean, from every detail, the sort of movement was on a gimbal. So, when that robot takes a punch, the gimbal reacted to that, and human beings in this suit were getting flung about. We were harnessed in and everything, but I mean, it was completely real. And then you've got water and fire and wind and lights. It was like emotional stuff. My character goes for a very emotional beat in one of that, man. And like Charlie, man, I earned my money that day. I really earned my money.
And, let's just be clear. Idris is in there for 3 days. The guy did 27 days in there, I mean, it's not that it's a competition or anything. I just want to be clear about the actual reality of what we're talking about.
I was the boss, though. I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah,
You
it was
were
the
the
boss.
boss, so you know that's what you get.
Just to wrap it up, we started talking about how excited you were in working with Guillermo del Toro. Now that you've done it, what can you say about working with him? How was he on set? Because he's a great energy, but at the same time, he just doesn't stop. He's got like 50 minds. What can you say about Guillermo del Toro?
I mean, like you say, I have never ever come across anybody who works as hard as Guillermo does. He shows up an hour or 2 hours before we start filming. When everybody goes and has their lunch, he'll run up to the editing room to edit, a little bit of the stuff in the morning, and then go, we'll shoot all day, and then at night he'll go to the editing room for a couple more hours. And so he's doing 18, 19 hours a day. And then when we finished the movie, I said, oh, you must be so excited, because we shot for, best part of 6 months. You must be so excited to have some time off finally. What are you gonna do? And he said, I'm gonna finish this novel I've been writing. And I said, what do you mean? He said, oh, I've been writing a novel while we've been up here. So he was doing all of that and going home at night and writing a couple pages of a novel every night. So it takes a tremendous amount of will and energy and obviously imagination to create a world as huge and exciting as he's created in this movie.
Yeah, I think, listen, Guillermo del Toro, to me, this is how I sum him up in my imagination. I think he walks into work really early in the morning. He has all this perspective. I think he takes all this perspective out of his hands, out of his mouth. He puts them into what we call virtual eyeballs. He throws them up in the air and they just scatter everywhere. He goes, right, okay, let's go to work. And I'm kidding you not, man. And no matter where you stand in a room, Guillermo has a perspective on you, on what's going on. And I think that's the way he achieves what he's doing. Like, it's incredible. It's really incredible to watch.